when we were considering Blueprint and what would become Blueprint through the extension of a sales tax, we were doing it kind of the typical way, sort of the way that all communities do it, and the way most communities do it today, in that you have a state formula based on population, and there's a split with the revenues that come from the sales tax, and the county splits those revenues based on population with their cities. So what most people do, cities will create a list of projects and counties will create a list of projects, and you'll divide the revenues and each jurisdiction will do those projects. Blueprint was fundamentally different. Blueprint was a way of looking at projects irrespective of jurisdiction. So it required us to take an entirely new approach. And so we thought that we could build projects which spanned the jurisdictions. We've all seen, for example, a road when you're going from one place to the next and the road construction stops, the new asphalt stops and the old asphalt begins, or a sidewalk that stops at a city line or a county line, or an isolated stormwater pond, which is a square sort of hole with a chain link fence around it. That was sort of the old ways of doing things. We thought if we planned and designed projects holistically, again, irrespective of jurisdictions, we could do things bigger. We could really create generational projects. And that came with great opportunities, but it also required a real change of thinking jurisdictionally. Beginnings of Blueprint were very organic, and it started with the citizens. And back in the old days, we were going back and forth between the city and the county. I was a young staff person writing the agenda items for joint workshops, and the city was trying to come up with a list of projects, and the county was developing a list of projects. And that went back and forth as we were trying to determine, again, how we would divide the revenues and what projects we would build. And citizens were watching this process unfold. And at that same time, they were coming together and contemplating what they wanted. A group of citizens that represented business in our community and a group of citizens that represented environmental interests in our community came together and started really creating the overall vision for Blueprint. So this group of citizens, called the Economic and Environmental Consensus Committee, or the EECC, came together separate from the government's work, separate from the city and county conversations. They had convened, the Chamber of Commerce had convened the group, and little did we know, they were developing a plan. And it was a big plan with a big vision at the time. And it was called Blueprint. And they were referring to it as Blueprint. And they brought that plan to a city and county joint workshop and they unveiled it. And they said, this is what we want. And it was big and it was bold, and it looked at projects irrespective of jurisdiction. And it did things that we might not otherwise do. It said one of the things we want to do is we want to complete Capitol Circle. Capitol Circle was a state roadway. And so oftentimes local jurisdictions wouldn't use local revenues to do a state road. And they said, we don't care who owns the road, we want it done. And that was one of the projects, one of the real signature projects rather, that came out of the first Blueprint. And again, so it was very organic, and to give the elected officials credit at the time, they listened to them and they actually devoted staff, and they said, staff, go work with the EECC and really develop this plan. The professional staff then worked with citizens to really, again, develop the plan. And we started really the broad strokes of what would become really, again, generational projects that you see all over our community today. That group of citizens, business leaders, and environmental leaders in our community, they were really the biggest cheerleaders for the referendum initiative. And again, we had a very receptive audience in the community because we'd done so much early work in really selling the vision. We weren't selling a list of projects. Really, we weren't saying, we're going to do this road and that road, and we're going to address this deficiency. We sold the vision over a long period of time and said, what do we want our community to look like? How do we want it to function? How do we want people to activate in those spaces? So it was a big vision. It was something that was entirely different at the time. And again, citizens were critical to that. And they stayed involved throughout. Citizens were built into our structure, into our blueprint structure up to this day. Anytime that there's a change to a blueprint project or there's a new wrinkle in a project, we take it back to our citizens groups that are now built in to our process. It was an innovative idea at the time to take the city commission and the county commission to create this entity, and it would be separate and apart from all of the competing needs of the county government and the city government. When this group came together, all they were doing was focusing on the execution of these projects. And that was really important to the citizens. Again, the pact that we made with the citizenry is, if you approve this sales tax, we're gonna get these projects done. And the way we would do that is to remove on county commission agendas and city commission agendas any of these projects from competing with any of that, and maybe to have public works directors who may be working on other projects and that sort of thing. We created Blueprint so that those personnel, that governing body, those engineers were only working on Blueprint projects, so that we could really fulfill the promise of Blueprint. Leveraging the local government infrastructure surtax dollars is a key component of Blueprint, and we've been very effective at doing that. So leveraging state dollars. The amphitheater that you see here was built with tourism development taxes, county tourism development taxes, but we knew that we had such an opportunity to leverage those dollars as we were creating this park. So it was a natural, so yes, we bring other revenues into it. Those decisions are made by the jurisdictions and by the governments who are responsible for those revenues. But the primary revenue is the local government infrastructure surtax, which most counties have in place. You know, when you think of Capitol Circle, for example, we sort of started with Capitol Circle and worked our way in. Capitol Circle was probably our signature original Blueprint project. And then we worked our way in and addressed chronic issues in the community. For example, all of our stormwater, we had chronic stormwater, historic stormwater and flooding issues in the downtown of Tallahassee. Again, by remediating Cascades Park and creating this park, we call it a stormwater facility cleverly disguised as a world-class park. It's all designed to flood. And not only is it designed to flood, to remove the stormwater from downtown, the various segments of the Cascades system treat the stormwater all the way until it goes into the receiving bodies, in this case, into Lake Munson. The typical way of thinking about projects like this, again, used to be a city, for example, might have a sales tax project to remediate flooding. But and they might have a very good project which eliminates flooding in a downtown and maybe gets it to a lake in the county as soon as possible. This, by removing those jurisdictional boundaries, we were able to look at projects holistically and say, okay, we're going to remediate flooding, but what else are we going to do? We're going to create a world-class park, our central park, and at the same time, we're going to treat the water along the way, far out into the county, as those flood waters ultimately go to the receiving body and ensure the health of the lake at the same time. So again, that gives you an idea of really the holistic nature of these projects. We call that the Blueprint effect. And there's no question, this level of public investment attracts private sector dollars. And Gain Street is a perfect example of that. Gain Street is another one of our signature projects. And Gain Street is one that had, again, in our community, it was an underutilized corridor. It was a warehouse corridor. And going in and creating Gain Street and also FAMU Way, the level of private sector investment that followed the public dollars was staggering. And again, and the same for parks. We created quite a backyard for this project that you see here, but we knew that when we did it, those private sector dollars would follow. And there's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, probably approaching $1 billion of private sector investment, which has followed the public investment. So that's called the blueprint effect, and it's been very successful in attracting private sector dollars.